Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hooligan Report. I'm joined once again by Bojan.
Hi, mate.
And we'll get straight into it. And it will be with a game that you're probably not too keen to chat about, but it was a pretty interesting result in terms of league standing, consequences for managers, etc. And that was Chelsea defeating United 4-0. What did you make of the game to start with?
Well, wasn't too great from my perspective. I mean, after the first goal went in that early, I just thought, the game is not over at all, and there's plenty of time for us to get goals back. After the second one went in, I thought this is not looking good. Not just because of the goals were going in, but we just weren't creating enough clear-cut chances. I mean, if you looked at the statistics after the game, it was, it could have been 0-0 or 2-2 based on those statistics. But of course, the key one is goals scored and goals conceded, and we were well and truly trounced there. I mean, the only gripe or excuse I really had for the game was Martin Atkinson. How that guy refs United Chelsea games every year that I can remember, really. And Ferg used to have problems with this bloke. How did he not send off David Luiz for that challenge on Fellaini?
Yeah.
I know it's Fellaini, and don't get me wrong, I hate him just as much as everyone else on the board hates him for the elbows and all that crap. But you can't go in and just basically stud someone in the knee and just get a booking. This when the same bookings were handed out for far less offences earlier and later on in the game. So that was my only gripe. But look, Chelsea fully deserved the 3 points. I was really disappointed in United from a couple of reasons. I just thought the lack of consistency, the way we defended against Liverpool, we basically set up the same way. The difference was really intensity. And we just didn't show the right mentality. And I think that's the big change between whatever you say about the managers that have come and gone at United since Fergie retired. That's the biggest change. I was speaking to a mate during the week about 4 or 5 years ago, United going to the Emirates to Arsenal in the Champions League semi-final away leg and rolling them 3-1 and completely dominating the game with Anderson, Darren Fletcher and Park Ji-sung as a midfield three. Not many people rate those players, but they just had a winning champion mentality. These players, for all the individual skills that a lot of them do have, they just aren't showing the right mentality at the moment. I kind of want something controversial to come to Mourinho. He just seems not to have that spark right now. I was expecting him to turn up to United and be an arrogant arsehole and piss everyone off.
In that sense, then, talking about a controversial moment, obviously there was the incident at the end of the game where he had a bit of a talk to Conte about the fact that he was revving up the crowd. People have sort of suggested that was intentional, and that's a calculated Mourinho trying to take the focus off the players. What do you make of it?
Well, I know that Stamford Bridge is basically a library. It's like the old Highbury. No, it is true, and I've made this point a couple of times. The traditional Chelsea supporter base cannot afford tickets to go to those games. And so you've got the prawn sandwich brigade, and lots of clubs, including mine, are guilty of having those type of supporters. And United away support is basically famous in England for being the loudest in the country. And United's, 2,000 or 3,000 people in the ground were out seeing Chelsea fans all game. And it was only when Conte at the end went the rev up that they actually made themselves heard, I guess. In terms of deflection, I don't think so. If he was trying to deflect anything, I would have thought he'd have mentioned the David Luiz challenge more and really said, well, that was the turning point, and that was the blame, and blame the referee. Unless he's just, exhausted that excuse from his Chelsea time at Chelsea last season. But I'm not sure. I don't think it was much of an excuse. It probably just pissed him off more than anything else because he was 4-0 down.
Fair enough. Is it concerning the nature of those last two goals? Just the way that, for instance, Hazard was able to kind of coast through your defence, and then Kante was basically just allowed to walk in.
The Kante one especially, it just kind of, as I was alluding to earlier, that mentality's not right. You should, I mean, you'd want and expect your side to try not to concede goals from whether it's the first minute or the 93rd minute of a game. You know, even if you're getting beat 2-0 and you know you're going to be beaten, you still surely you have pride, and that kind of pride and that mentality just isn't there right now. It is concerning. Look, you know, Chris Smalling, I think he just had one of those days at the office. Very, very, very poor. Bailey being injured wasn't great. So I think he's out 6 to 8 weeks. And then there's going to be Mourinho versus I think it's from the Ivory Coast. Mourinho versus Ivory Coast as to whether we let him go to African Cup of Nations after doing his knee.
Yeah.
So that'll be a drama. And we've had more injuries, which led to obviously that terrible defence in the League Cup, but somehow managed to win that game. But yeah, there's lots of concerns at the moment at United, I'd say.
From a Chelsea point of view, then, how do you see them progressing in the league this season? Do you see, I mean, for the last month now, they've looked remarkably solid with that 3-4-3 formation. Do you see that as sort of being a good stepping stone for them to really mount a challenge for either top four or even the title?
Well, I mean, I'd be a hypocrite if I said top four or the title, considering it was only about a week ago I said no to top four and contending with the title until next season. But it's up to them, just to prove me wrong. I think that performance, while they've been scratching out some results, that performance is probably an outlier based on the way this season's gone. But look, if they can keep things tight at the back, they've probably got enough to score 1 to 2 goals every week. I mean, the real standout in that game wasn't Kante, it wasn't Hazard, it wasn't Costa, it was guys like Victor Moses. I mean, he's pretty much played for half the Premier League teams, and has pretty much been either loaned out or sold, and just been a bit of a journeyman career. But tell you what, Conte has really given him a new lease of life, and if he can get those supporting cast players to consistently lift their level of performance, maybe they will prove me wrong and sneak into the top four. But I still had them around the 5th to 6th mark for this season.
And then we'll talk now about the Burnley defeat of Everton 2-1 with a really late goal there for Burnley to win that game. I suppose this is an interesting result in a couple of senses, because Everton have really sort of stumbled in the last month or so after a pretty fantastic start to the season, where I think they were second on the table at one point. So the two sides to this, I'll ask you first about Everton and what this result means for them, and then what it means for Burnley and their survival prospects.
Well, regarding Everton, I'm not concerned at all. I mean, Coleman's hasn't been around that long. I personally rate him highly. There'll be dips in performance. I think you'll find that come January there'll be, and there needs to be, defensive reinforcements brought into that team. I mean, Jagielka, he's long way past it. He was past it 2 years ago, let alone now. And they've just been bought out by a pretty wealthy bloke, and he's committed to putting plenty of cash into that club. So I still see them around the 5th to 6th mark. I mentioned it last time I was on, but he really needs to get their talisman, Ross Barkley, firing. He's the key to them. If he's firing, when he's up and about, they're up and about, and he's really the bellwether for that team. So if Coleman can get him going, they should do really well. I mean, I still have them around that kind of 5th to 6th mark too. I've probably got about 4 or 5 teams in that 5th to 6th mark, to be fair. And on to Burnley. Michael Keane, mate. He has been fantastic this year at the back. Fantastic this year. And he really leads that defence and keeps the goals out. for them, and they're just doing enough to sneak results at the moment. I hope they stay up, mainly because for some reason not a lot of people like Sean Dyche, so that's led me to support him. And it's a lot easier this year now they don't have Joey Barton, I guess. But yeah, I think they'll have enough to stay up. I mean, in this league, if you do not concede goals and you don't do leadership at the back, and if you can sneak a couple, then you'll stay up.
Which would be remarkable for them because, I mean, in the 2 previous Premier League seasons, they haven't managed to stay up. So for Burnley supporters and from their perspective, it would be a good outcome for them. West Ham also won with a late goal against Sunderland in a 1-0 win. And coupled with, we will talk about the League Cup results in a second, but coupled with their also defeat in the League Cup, it's looking pretty grim for Sunderland and especially for Moyes.
Yeah, well, look, if he's still in charge in mid-November, I think I might just call it and say that they're down. This might be the year, finally, for them. They just don't have the goals, pure and simple. Jermaine Defoe, it was fantastic last year. He's got 0 service at all this year. Yanu's been out injured, and he provided a spark at the start of the season. But without that kind of spark and a bit of creativity, there's just Defoe isn't getting enough chances, and they're not scoring goals. You can kind of couple that with the fact that they're conceding far too many, and they're just getting overrun in midfield. That their playing squad's pretty atrocious, to be honest. So, I'll go as far as to say that they're done.
From a West Ham perspective, they're out of the relegation zone for the first time this season. Off the field, I think you've said that you've been to a couple of games at the London Stadium, or the Olympic Stadium, or whatever it's called. What's your sense on the issues with the crowds?
Well, I think it's really... I think it's getting progressively worse there. I don't think there's much doubt about that. Yeah, look, I'm just trying to compare it to other situations where teams are trying to move, but it's very different to the Arsenal one. But yeah, the way the layout of the stadium and where they have opposition and home fans located and the barriers between the two sets of fans, quite frankly, aren't good enough. They aren't good enough at all. I.e., what I'm saying is that it's far too easy for the opposition fans to get to the home fans and vice versa. There's no barriers there at all, really. It's just basically, 3 or 4 cops. So you see during these games, the hardcore supporter base, it's just the away fans are the hardcore fans, right?
Yeah.
They're the hardest idiots you can get. So you got the away Chelsea fans. Whatever I said about the prawn sandwich brigade at Stamford Bridge, the away ones, they're the hard asses, right? And so they're going against West Ham fans who are just a little bit crazy. And so that's kind of sparking that. I know the response from the police, they really put it back on the stadium owners and said this is probably the worst stadium that they have to police in the country for that because of those same problems with the layout. I mean, whether it's affecting the team on the pitch, I don't think so. I think they'd probably be fighting a lot less if they were winning more often, I guess. But I don't think the effect goes the other way. But yeah, they do need to. Well, the stadium owners need to listen to the police and find out a way to sort this out because it doesn't reflect well on their club at all. And if they're looking at staying there long term and filling that stadium every week, they're going to need all the fans that they can get. And if I had kids and I was a West Ham fan, I wouldn't be taking my child to London Stadium. No way.
Yeah, I've heard those similar comments from Hull supporters saying they're not going to take their kids to away games there, and I think that's certainly where the situation's at. So it'll be interesting to see what the investigation or the outcome of these sorts of events is. I think there's been some suggestion that they could have to play games behind closed doors, which would that be a first in the Premier League? I'm just trying to think. I can't really think of any other instances of behind closed door games.
I don't. No. They don't need to play behind closed door games. That's ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. There are far worse kind of, potential fights at derbies and stabbings and lots of kind of violence, and they found out ways to. It's funny at all the other stadiums, right? Once they've got the fans into the ground, because what they bring one set in earlier than the other, and they have police basically taking them in separately, and there's no way for the home fans to interact with the away fans before games. And this is the irony. It's all about while they're in the ground as well, the fighting, as opposed to outside the ground. So they just need to put up barriers, effectively, between the two sets of supporters. And it's just too easy. Like you'll have, the way they've got it set up, you've got kind of home fans almost surrounding the away fans. So rather than them having a singular kind of section of the ground going all the way up, you've got home fans above them as well. So what do you think the home fans are going to do? Throw shit down at them?
Yeah.
You know, so it's just really silly. They really need to sort that out. I think no, they don't need to stop home fans going to those games. They just need to be a bit smarter about it.
And the final result we'll talk about in detail is the Man City draw with Southampton 1-1. Concerning for Man City in the sense that it's now, I think, 5 games without a win for City, now 6 with the loss in the League Cup as well. A few City supporters on the board have said there's no cause for concern, but what's your take on the events and the results?
Well, City fans on the board will never say there's any cause for concern, no matter what's going on anyway. I will. You know, you've got Guardiola. There's zero chance he's going to change anything about the way he plays. So there's not even much point really getting concerned about it. But they're still top. Look, I just thought if you exclude the 4, I guess of those 6 games they haven't won, the first 4 I would just kind of write them off as them being a little bit unfortunate. Outside of being belted in Barcelona, you know, they created heaps of chances and didn't put them away. What was concerning, if I was a City supporter, if there was something to be concerned about, the fact that the last 2 games they didn't create anything.
Yeah.
So that would be the point of concern. Not having created anything, even when they've had Kevin De Bruyne. But, you know, teams go through these lulls. I wouldn't be concerned long term. I think what it shows is that the Premier League is a league which Guardiola's never managed in, and the standard is a lot higher across the board. Not at the top level, so the standard in the leagues that he's come from. Well, okay, the standard in La Liga, you had one other super team, or potentially 2, and the rest of them are minnows, right? Who are just, you know, these players can go at pretty much 50% and walk through games. Bayern Munich, you play 2 or 3 big games a year, same thing. You come to England, and you've got much smarter coaches who have been coaching with a high level of player. So you get kind of, look at West Ham, who just got Valencia's starting right winger from last year, right? And he's playing for them. So you're getting kind of Champions League caliber players. Shaqiri coming to the Premier League playing for minnows, right? So the standard's a lot higher. It's going to be a lot harder for Guardiola than maybe he anticipated. But I don't think there's much point getting concerned because nothing's going to change outside of potentially personnel.
Should they be, well, talking of personnel, should they be concerned about the form of John Stones, who was directly culpable in the only Southampton goal for the game?
They're not going to drop him. Should they be concerned? Well, didn't we already know what this bloke was? Didn't we know that his main attributes are his passing and his ability to bring the ball out from the back? And given that Guardiola, and look, I like Guardiola and I like the football he plays, right? But he does things very differently, and some things that I don't agree with. And one thing is, I don't agree with having people like Alexander Kolarov, who couldn't defend you and I, playing at the back just because he knows how to pass the ball well. You know, because at one stage or another, he's going to come a cropper, playing that way. And so I think we know what John Stones is. I hope for his and England's, you know, career future that they are actually improving his defending, and it's not just a pure focus. Because the way Guardiola's system works is that you defend by having the ball. So the other team only has the ball for 25% of the games. So you're only getting, I guess, 50%. You're probably doing 50 to 75% less defending than he was last year at Everton. So, yeah, I was concerned when they signed him about that. And I'm happy with the way things are going with him at the moment.
And then from Southampton's point of view, they've been on a pretty impressive run of form lately, also through in the League Cup. What have you made of their start to the season?
Well, I didn't really think Claude Puel will actually do very well. He hasn't. I think he won a title with Monaco, I believe, quite some time ago, when they were kind of owned by, well, they're still owned by a billionaire, but he no longer funds the club to the same level. But he won the lead with a squad that was far better than any other in the lead there, and it's been a while since he's kind of done anything. They started the season pretty slowly, but they're really starting to pick up now, and I've been really impressed. They lost key players in the summer again. Højbjerg's been a really good signing, signing for them, and he could develop into a really top quality player. So I've been impressed, and surprisingly so.
We'll talk about the other results then just briefly, and we had a couple of 0-0 draws in the league to start the weekend off, with Bournemouth drawing 0-0 with Spurs and Arsenal drawing 0-0 with Middlesbrough. I think that was Middlesbrough's first clean sheet against a London club in something like 26 attempts, which was a bit of an interesting stat that I saw. We had Leicester beating Crystal Palace 3-1. Hull losing once again to Stoke 2-0, which was a pretty disappointing result. But in that game, I guess, once we changed our formation going into the second half and Hernandez came off the bench, everything looked a little bit better, which carried on into the League Cup and will hopefully carry on into the game against Watford this weekend. Swansea drew 0-0 with Watford, so it was actually 3 0-0 draws for the weekend. And then Liverpool 2-1 over West Brom. Was there anything in there that caught your eye?
Only really that kind of Arsenal didn't really deserve to win that game against Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough pretty much had most of the best chances and looked really troubled. But again, I wouldn't be getting concerned about it if I'm an Arsenal fan. It's just sometimes those things happen. All right. And yeah, I couldn't be more impressed with the job that Eddie Howe's doing at Bournemouth. I think he's got the potential to be a really high-quality manager going forward.
The League Cup results then were pretty good for our sides. United beating City 1-0 and Hull beating Bristol City 2-1. Newcastle 6-0 were the big winners against Preston. Liverpool getting up, despite resting a couple of their players, against Spurs, 2-1 in that one. Arsenal 2-0 over Reading. West Ham 2-1 over Chelsea, which was a big result for them. Leeds getting through on penalties against Norwich, and Southampton knocking off Sunderland. I guess out of those, the big results, I guess, were Liverpool beating Spurs and you guys beating City. So we've kind of alluded to it already, but what was your take on that game against City?
It's just good to win for the confidence, really, of this side. I mean, I'm a fairly big believer in the fact that you should go into every game looking to win. I know that sounds silly, but a lot of teams take the League Cup.
For sure.
Don't take the League Cup very seriously. And look, I don't really take the League Cup very seriously at all. But if you're putting out the worst thing United could have done is put out a strong team and then not care. I'd have rather have seen a young team that really, really cares about it. But look, the first teamers that did play for us took it seriously enough. Ander Herrera's put into quite the season. There's even talk that he might be in line for the captaincy after we finally fucked off Rooney in January. So, yeah, I just think the main thing was the win, really.
And then Newcastle winning 6-0 is also a pretty standout result. So they're tracking pretty nicely in the Cup as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't watch much of the Championship, but certainly scoring, I don't remember them scoring this many goals on a consistent basis since Kevin Keegan was there. And that's a long time ago. So
And
Benitez is certainly...
it's with the supposedly defensive Benitez, who a few people were sort of criticising for that when he was appointed there.
Well, he hasn't got too many friends, that bloke.
Yeah.
He rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. So it wasn't just United fans he rubbed up the wrong way. But look, all the best up. Newcastle are a huge club. And they got a very loyal and large supporter base. And with the money behind them, even though it's in the hands of an absolute criminal, they should be in the Premier League. And it won't be long till they're there.
Yeah. In terms of the draw for the next round, I think you guys have West Ham, don't you?
Mm.
And then we've drawn Newcastle, who I actually, to be honest, I think going into that game, we're almost the underdogs in that one because the ability and size of that squad, they really do basically just have a Premier League squad already, just playing in the Championship. So that'll be a quite closely run game, I think. Liverpool have Leeds at home, and I think Arsenal are at home to Southampton, who a few people are convinced was a fixed job. What do you make of that draw? Who do you see from here going on and winning the League Cup?
It depends if United keep putting out half the first team, really. Then I'd probably back us in as favourites, but I don't really want that to happen.
Do you think Liverpool is basically between you and Liverpool?
Wins to the league. I wouldn't write off Southampton.
Yeah.
The way they're playing, I wouldn't write them off. But you'd have to think Liverpool is certainly. I don't think that they're the best team in the competition. I don't think they're in the top 4 best teams in the competition. But what I will say is that they're in terms of form, they're up there. They're probably first in terms of form, in terms of playing to their potential. They are playing absolutely matching out their potential. And so if they keep doing that, they'll be successful on all fronts, really. I will watch the Leeds Liverpool game. I wish it was at Ellen Road instead. Their fans haven't had much joy for quite some time. So I was really hoping for a Leeds United draw at Ellen Road.
I think most people were hoping they drew Leeds, because I know we were certainly hoping we got Leeds as well.
Oh, well, more just for kind of the old days and the old rivalry. United versus Leeds was a pretty big rivalry back in the day. But yeah, I think there's some good fixtures in the League Cup to look out for.
Okay, we'll move on then and talk about the previews for the coming weekend now. And it starts with a game between Sunderland and Arsenal, which really promises that it could get a bit messy for Sunderland if Arsenal can run right in that one. They were held 0-0 with Middlesbrough last week, but apart from that, they've certainly been in scoring form. So how do you see that one panning out?
Oh, Arsenal will be smarting after last week, so not just the performance, but also the result. So I think they'll come out with a point to prove. And as I said before, when they're playing these minnows, once they get, a few goals up, they can really start downhill skiing. So I think this could be a real painful one for Sunderland. I'm assuming this is at the Emirates.
No, it's at Stadium of Light for this one.
Oh, that doesn't change anything. Yeah, I'll probably back in Arsenal 4-0, and it's very, very comfortable. I just don't think they've got they haven't got the squad, and they really don't have the mentality. For Moyes was kind of famous at Everton for getting the most out of bad players, and he just hasn't been able to do it since he left Everton, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I'll back Arsenal in 2 or 3 now, which I think fairly comfortable for them. Watford at home to Hull is the next game, and I think a lot of that will depend on how we set up our formation. If we stick with the 3-5-2 that boded well for the second half against Stoke and also got us through relatively comfortably in the Cup, I think we'll do damage to Watford in that game. Watford themselves haven't been travelling too well lately. They had that 0-0 draw with Swansea last week and only scraped over Middlesbrough the week before. So I think it could be an interesting game. I think there is a chance that we could win this one. How do you see it?
Oh, it'll be interesting because it'll be close. I'll give you that. Aside from that, it might not be that interesting for the neutral. Yeah, Watford aren't scoring at the same rate they were scoring last year. That kind of Dini Udalo thing isn't happening so much this year. So I'm actually thinking this might be a fairly boring 0-0 draw, and I think Mike Phelan might just be happy to start pitching up some more points.
I think I'd be happy with that as well. West Brom at home to Man City is another midnight game, and it'll be a bit interesting because Pulis does have a tendency to scrape out results in games against some of the bigger clubs. I guess I'm thinking particularly of Spurs in terms of draws that he can pull out. But for Man City's sake, they really do need to get back on the winning trail. We've already sort of said that it's not a huge concern, but if the run did continue a few more games, it would start to get a bit worrying, particularly if they started slipping down the table a little bit. So do you see City coming out and breathing fire in this game?
I think so. I think that Guardiola has heard for the last week that he hasn't won in 6 games. It's the worst run since 2008, which I think wasn't it? It's like the first year anyway, managing. So I think if his players have anything about them, then they'll be wanting to kind of do well by him. And yeah, I can see if City score an early goal, this could be a bloodbath. And I think they will. But if they don't, then it should be really tight, and City might kind of tighten up if they're not creating chances. But I'll back in a 4-0 Man City.
Yeah, I mean, it could go...
Pretty aggressive, I know.
Yeah, well, if they can get Aguero to score a goal early, I think that would certainly open him up and open the team up to a bit more fluidity and confidence and maybe start scoring. But yeah, I mean, the longer it goes while they're waiting for that goal, it could certainly get a bit tense for them. United at home to Burnley, so you get Keane coming home in that one. Do you envisage any trouble with Burnley in that one?
Oh, I visit trouble every week at the moment. I think for the moment, United just need to concentrate on picking up the 3 points. I'm not too bothered about the performance right now. We just need to stay as close as we can to the kind of top teams, and then hope that performances start improving as the season goes along and the squad starts to gel a bit more and try to understand Jose's tactics. But yeah, look, mate, I'll be happy with a 2-1 victory, and that's what I think it'll be.
I think you'll keep a clean sheet in this one. I'm not hugely confident in Burnley's scoring ability. I mean, they've scored a little bit lately, but I don't know when Andre Gray is back. It must be pretty soon, if not this game. But I haven't heard anything about it because he's had that suspension for his previous indiscretions. But it'll certainly be an interesting one. I think you guys should get up in that one pretty comfortably, though. Spurs at home to Leicester, which is a pretty big game after the title race last season, and I think there'll be a bit of feeling in this one from both sets of supporters. I think I saw a banner that Leicester had made for the game, which was basically saying that Spurs had managed to finish third in a 2-horse race. So I think there'll be a lot of reminders and feeling about that title race in this game. How do you see this one panning out? I mean, Leicester have been pretty woeful away from home lately.
Yeah, this could. This game is really hard. Really hard. It all depends on Leicester's mentality and how they approach this game. If they want to win these Premier League games, then they put out their full strength side and come at them as hard as possible on that counter attack, then this could be a really free-flowing, high-scoring game, and I think it might be a high-scoring draw. But on the other hand, if they don't turn up with the right mentality, Spurs will just bitch them. But I think I'll go for a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, I think it could be a draw in that one as well. Although, same story with the Man City game, I think if Spurs can score a goal early, I think it could open up quite a bit. And Leicester seem to be having trouble defending set pieces. So, yeah, it does. Not it doesn't bode well for Leicester in that sense, but Spurs' ability to score goals has been a struggle for recent weeks. Middlesbrough at home to Bournemouth. Interesting stat I came across the other week, or the other day I should say, was Watford against Hull City and Middlesbrough versus Bournemouth are both unique fixtures for the Premier League in the sense that there is no prior Premier League meetings between those teams, which I found quite interesting that we've got two of them occurring on the same weekend. Obviously Bournemouth first time in the Premier League, and with Hull and Watford obviously being in the Premier League at different points in time. Middlesbrough at home really need to start picking up some points because they're sort of drifting towards the relegation zone at the moment. Do you see them getting up against Bournemouth, or are Bournemouth in too good a form for them?
Oh, I think Bournemouth are too good to lose this game, and they just play they're always going to score. Actually, that's hilarious because they didn't score on last weekend. But what I should say is that they're always a danger of scoring. Not because they've got quality players in every position, but the style of football they play, and it's very intricate, and they know where everyone's going to be inside out all game. And I'm just not sure that Borough. Well, they didn't put away their chances last weekend when they should have done it against Arsenal, and they haven't been creating too many chances in most of the other games that I've seen them play in. However, given it's an away game and it's a long way to travel, I don't envy the Bournemouth away supporters. Jesus. I reckon it'll be a 0-0 and about a 12-hour bus ride.
Yeah, it'd be pretty rough for the Bournemouth supporters. I can see this one being a scrappy game, like you're saying, but I could see a 1-0 result either way in that one. It's just a bit hard to tell which way that's going to go. Crystal Palace at home to Liverpool is a fixture that people seem to enjoy for one reason or another. There's been a few interesting results in this one over the years, especially at Selhurst Park. Not least the 3-3 draw back when Liverpool were hoping for the title a couple of seasons back. Benteke against his old club as well adds another layer of context to this game. How do you see this one panning out?
Well, I really wish that Dwight Gale was still there. They used to have a field day against Liverpool's defence, but unfortunately he's decided to take the easy way out and bang goals in the Championship. Well, Benteke can't afford to miss the chances that he has been missing of late if they have a chance. But I reckon he's got a point to prove. Well, he should have a point to prove in this game. And this is at Selhurst Park?
Yeah, it's at Selhurst Park.
I reckon that Pardew will be wanting to kind of match up against Klopp. Everyone he'll be thinking everyone's talking about this Johnny Foreigner who's just turned up and had a stroke of luck. That's kind of the way he thinks, and he'll think he's as good, and I think he'll thrive in this game on the sideline. And I reckon I fancy a draw. I fancy a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I'm probably with you on that one. I think a score draw is the way it's going to go in this one. It'll be interesting to see quite how the game pans out. I think there will be a lot resting on Benteke in terms of Palace for scoring chances, but then you never know. They could also get a couple of chances at set pieces with their defence, always looking dangerous. So it could be an interesting one. Everton at home to West Ham. Everton probably pretty desperate for a win at this point just to kind of get back on track, and West Ham suddenly looking pretty half decent. Lukaku, I think, has scored in something like his last 6 or 7 games against West Ham or something crazy like that, which bodes well for him, I guess, in getting on the score sheet again. But how do you see this one panning out?
I'm just not convinced by West Ham. There's been such a big change from last year, and the football they play, they're creating lots of chances. and they just haven't been doing that so much, and they really haven't had anyone who's been able to finish up front for most of the season. So, given that, and given Everton are home, I think Everton will have too much and do this relatively comfortably. I'll say 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, I think Everton at home should be too good for West Ham, but it is funny that West Ham sort of looking like they're playing better away from home, generally speaking, because of perhaps the issues with the new stadium or things like that. So it could be a tight one, but I think Everton will edge them in that one, maybe 2-1, I think, yeah. Southampton at home to Chelsea. Both teams in pretty stellar form, so this could be quite an interesting game to watch. Southampton pretty good in terms of keeping clean sheets. Away from home, I suppose, more than at home. Whereas Chelsea look like they're pretty open and scoring quite a lot of goals at the moment, which we haven't been used to from Chelsea for a couple of years now, probably since the Ancelotti days. How do you see this one panning out?
I think this is probably game of the week.
Yeah.
I'd say this looks like an absolute cracker, given the recent form of the two sides. But yeah, it's very hard to call either way. I mean, the way Charlie Austin's been playing this season certainly bodes well, and Costa really hasn't hit his stride so much. It's more the other guys around him who are doing the bulk of the scoring. But and this is at St Mary's?
Yeah.
I have to say a draw, I think. 1-1.
Did you see Bufal's goal in the cup against Sunderland? It was...
Oh, Golazzo.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they found another gem. I mean, I have a feeling, is he their record signing? So it's not as if he was one of their players on the cheap. But yeah. But he could be the latest player that gets linked to, Liverpool or United or whoever it is.
I hope he doesn't go to Liverpool. He can stay where he is.
Yeah, I'm probably with you. I mean, I think it could be a draw in this one, probably 1-1, similar to their game against Man City last week. But it's certainly the game of the round and certainly one that will be pretty interesting to watch. Going from one game of the round to probably the most uninteresting game of the round is Stoke against Swansea to round off the weekend. It's at the Britannia for Stoke. What have you made of Bradley's start at Swansea, and do you see him sort of pulling them out of trouble? Because it hasn't looked too good so far.
No, it hasn't looked good, but it's early days. I guess when you do change your manager, usually when you're doing poorly, and you're always looking for that new manager bounce, as they call it,
Yeah.
Because players feel like, well, for whatever reason, the old manager, they were out of favour or whatever, and they're trying to impress the new manager, but it's just not kind of happening for them at the moment. But it's still early days. Still early days. Oh, and in terms of Stoke, well, they're kind of a little bit. You probably know more than me based on last week, but aside from Shaqiri, there doesn't look to be too much going forward. I haven't really seen Arnautovic do that well this year.
No, he's been pretty underwhelming, I think.
Same with Bojan.
Yeah.
So they're probably a little bit too reliant on guys like Shaqiri. So I reckon this is going to be 0-0.
I would say 0-0, but the only reason I reckon there'll be a goal in this one is Joe Allen against Swansea. I could almost pencil him in for a goal given the form he's been in lately. So I reckon he'll score in this one. And Sigurdsson for Swansea's been looking pretty good as well. So I might actually back a 1-1 draw in that one.
Did you hear what Joe Allen said in the press a couple of weeks ago?
No.
You know that he's a Man United fan?
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Jeez.
He got interviewed, and it was in the papers. He's a Man United fan, and he played at Liverpool.
Playing for Liverpool's a bit of an interesting one.
Yeah, I know. I think he kept that one under wraps for quite some time, and it's really funny because often when a player, and look, I think all football fans are the same, but when a player leaves your club, you usually want the best for them, and you kind of keep following them, like with me and Michael Keane and Will Keane, James Weir, guys like that. And Liverpool fans are almost usually kind of cheering when Joe Allen does anything, and yet he's a bloody United fan.
Oh dear, that's an interesting revelation. I hadn't picked up on that one. Well, from that United fan to this United fan, thanks so much for coming on, Bojan.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries, and thanks everyone for listening in. Hopefully your team gets a good result, and we'll see you next week.